Exactly. What could go wrong with this, right? It's controversial, but it's innovative. You can't disagree with it being innovative. And then, how many of you have a cell phone, a mobile phone? Okay, almost everybody in here. Do you remember once upon a time, if you wanted to make a phone call, you would dial? Does anybody remember those days? Me too. Okay, maybe you don't. And once upon a time, if you wanted to take a picture, you got your camera out and did it, right? Now, we're so used to it, we don't even think about it anymore, but you can be like, yeah, honey, yeah, I'm sitting here right in front of, oh, you want me to get a picture of that? Sure. Okay, let me just send that to you. Did you get it, honey? All on the same device. And I have a little, we're used to it now, but when this first came out, it was weird. It was weird because it's a marriage of two different functionalities. And I have this wonderful cartoon I grabbed, and I'll just read it if you can't see it. It says, "Can you hang on a sec? I think I just took another picture of my ear." Because when these things first come out, they're weird because it's innovative. But if you think about it, phones just keep going, right? Not only can you take pictures with them, but you can text with them, you can email with them, you can watch television on them, you can listen to music on them. It keeps morphing. It's pretty interesting, but if you get used to it and you don't even see it happening anymore. And this is another example I just want to give that I think is really fun. Sometimes it can lead to just cool ideas that are just kind of fun. And this is a marriage of technology and fashion. Google is one of the companies that's doing this. That's an LED dress. So it's actually got little lights in it. Yeah. And it's hard to tell in this one, so I grabbed another picture. I don't know if you know Lupita Nyong'o. She wore one on The Daily Show. I think it's kind of pretty, actually. But you can actually now buy clothes that have LED lights in them. So that's a few examples of what happened when you bring people from different fields together and they come up with new things. So what about an intrapersonal synergy inside of one person? And this is where I want you to start thinking about yourself again. Here's some famous, interesting examples. And if you guys don't know who this is, I'm not sure what I'm gonna do. So, first of all, let me just say that again, we got the field 1 and the field 2, just like before. Only last time I was talking about this would be a different person and then a second person. Now I'm talking about the same person. So, all right, do you know who this guy is? I mean, I know his name is up there, but do you know who he is? How many of you know who he is? I want to see if I'm... You even know who he is. Do you know who he is? Everybody knows who he is? Okay, note to self, Michelle. Lead with Ray Charles. Okay. Okay. This is interesting, and since you know him, I think you'll think it's even more interesting. Ray Charles was interviewed by Rolling Stone magazine a long time ago, and the interviewer said, "Hey, did you sit down one day and decide to just invent soul music?" And he said, "No, it was never my intention to invent nothing. I started out trying to sound 1,000% like Nat King Cole. And I could get hired all the time, but nobody knew who I was. Nobody knew my name. So one day, I just decided to be myself. And I grew up in the church, and I grew up with the blues, and the flavors just naturally came together, and it turned into soul music." So within a single person, there was a sweet spot that was something completely different from what it came from. Right? Do you see this? Okay. How many of you have ever taken a Zumba class? Hey, that right on. I love this. I would have never thought that. That's really cool. So the story behind Zumba is very interesting too. Beto Perez was a fitness instructor in Colombia, and he was supposed to be teaching an aerobics class one day, and he forgot his aerobics music. So he ran back to his car and he grabbed what other music he could find that he listened to in his personal collection, and it ended up being merengue and salsa. So he brings that back to class, teaches the class, and it takes on a whole new shape. And voila, Zumba is born. How many of you have ever heard of Lawrence Halprin? Anybody in here a landscape architect? Hi, okay. He is like, to landscape architects, one of my best friends is a landscape architect, and to him, this guy is like a hero. he's really interesting. He was married, he's not with us anymore, but he was married to Anna Halprin, who is still alive, who is a fabulous modern dancer. And he used to watch her dance all the time, and he decided what he would like to do is, you know what landscape architecture is, right? You might hire, if you have a lot of money, you might hire somebody to do your lawn, really beautifully, but they do parks. So he decided to marry landscape architecture with modern dance and create dancing landscapes. And he also built a few dance decks for his wife and other troops, and rather than being rectangular, he had them go around trees so that it would mimic the experience of dancing. So again, very innovative, very creative, something new. Who's this dude? Okay, everybody knows this guy, right? Steve Jobs. And I'm not going to say that Steve Jobs, in and of himself, is wholly responsible for Apple products. He is not. But he had a very strong vision of what they would be like that is still being carried out today, I think. So how many of you know that Steve Apple, well, look, I'm merging the names now. Woo! Steve Jobs, he kind of decided not to go to college anymore after a while. How many of you knew that?
Yeah, Reed.
Reed College. He said, nah, I'm not interested in this anymore. But he didn't leave. He didn't go away. He hung around Reed College. Why did he hang around Reed College? What was he doing there? Anybody know? Yeah. Yeah, he was studying calligraphy. He was really passionate about it. And I have a quote from him I could read later, but he was really passionate about calligraphy. He was really, noticing the space between letters and within letters. And then he went on to study Zen Buddhism. He was a Buddhist. And then later, started in the computer industry. And what's interesting is he brought that aesthetic sense with him to the computer industry. So I was one of the people who got one of his first Macs. And I remember being blown away by the way the fonts looked. We're used to that now, but he brought that. Who knows? If he hadn't studied calligraphy, we might not have Apple products today. We might not. So it's an interesting thought. So do you see how these people brought different parts of themselves together and made something new? Anybody having any kind of feeling of knowing of what your superpower might be? Anybody in here starting to feel something? It takes some digging. I'll tell you, because I've worked with some people, it takes a little digging to find it, but once you do, it's really, really worth it. So I want to tell you, give you some hints as to how you can find out what it might be for you. And I would really encourage you to put a little bit of time into doing it, because once you find this sweet spot in you, you start being an extremely strong, powerful person in this world. And you're happy too, because it makes you feel really good when you bring together your passions and your expertise. It just makes you feel like you're on fire at any age, at any time. Okay, big hint. A lot of times when you're bringing those two worlds together, the skills transfer over. It feels like you're kind of doing the same thing. How many of you know who Paul Allen is? Who is Paul Allen? I used to work with him.
One of the founders of Microsoft.
Co-founder of Microsoft. I have a picture here of him playing a guitar. The reason I have this picture up here is because he used to, when they were first creating Microsoft, code by day and play guitar at night, and then come back and code by day and play guitar at night. And he said, I will read this, playing music forced me to look beyond what currently exists and express myself in a new way. Any musicians in here? Okay. Well, I'm a musician. And I can tell you that when you pick up an instrument and you haven't planned what you're going to play, you're not just playing a song you already heard. You never know what's going to come out, and it's really, really interesting. So what he did is he took that skill skill of coming up with something new from playing guitar and brought it to coding, and back and forth and back and forth. Who's this? Richard Branson. Richard Branson's a busy guy. He's runs 40-plus Virgin companies, and yet he makes time to kite surf. What? Why would he do that? That's kind of weird. Aren't we supposed to work all the time if we're going to be successful and innovative? Thank you, whoever said no. So one of the things that it gives you is good timing, and I'm going to read a quote, not from him, but another, Scott Picken, who's also a successful businessman. Kite surfing is just like running a business because it gives you good timing. You have to wait for the right time to launch. When you're riding the waves, you must also be on a constant lookout for changes in the environment. So he's out kite surfing, learning how to work. I used to hang glide. And you didn't just do whatever you wanted to do, depending on how fast was the wind blowing that day? Was it 15 miles per hour? Was it 25? Was it coming from the north? Was it coming from the northwest? It changed everything that you did. And when you get better at reading your environment and knowing how to work with it, you can get better at business too. Who are these young ladies? I didn't put their names up there to see if you could guess, because they're pretty famous.
I know who he is, and I don't remember the
Okay, the one on the top,
Betty Davis.
Betty Davis is the one at the bottom, and Meryl Streep.
very sweet.
Yeah, so the reason I have them up there is because they are both, used to be, avid knitters and actresses. Both of them knit on set. They knit on set. Gets them in the zone, the zone, where they're kind of in flow. Then they get called to do their acting, and they're still in the zone. And while they're in the zone, they're able to access powerful acting impulses. Back and forth and back and forth. Why might playing football help you be a better team player at work? Because that's what this guy does, Judd Hollis. What do you think? Any ideas? Okay.
Accountability to the team members and to your coworkers.
Accountability to your team workers and your coworkers. Very good. I'm really glad that you got that. A football player and his fellow teammates sacrifice for each other for the common good of the team. Business is the same way. Teamwork and camaraderie are what drives success in business. Larry Ellison. How many of you knew that he likes to sail? Yeah, of course you might, right? Because you're a sailor. Founder of Oracle. He wasn't good at first. He's in sailing competitions. He wasn't very good at first. He failed a lot. And he didn't want to fail all the time, so he decided he was going to learn how to get better at sailing. And he learned how to overcome setbacks during races and to develop a winning mindset. And he used those same skills leading Oracle. This guy you may not know, Peter Diamond, he plays tennis, and he's also a very good businessman. Why might playing tennis help you be better at business? Any ideas?
Keeps you on your toes.
It does. It literally keeps you on your toes. And figuratively, tennis helps you to be fully present, able to think on your feet, and change tactics if needed. These same skills are necessary for running a successful business. So can you see how these people merged two different parts of their lives and kind of were doing the same thing in each of those worlds? Did you get that? Yes? Okay. So let me talk about implications this has for business. First of all, if you just think about back to the original example where I was talking about different people from different expertises and specialties coming together, that sort of synergy effect, interpersonal synergy effect, it makes a lot of sense that if you want to have an innovative company, you're going to try to put multidisciplinary teams together to solve problems. And I think a lot of companies think that they do that when they use cross-functional teams. Well, yeah, we're going to get together a cross-functional team. So there's a researcher and a designer and a marketing professional, and that's pretty good. But I'm talking about, people from very different disciplines. Think about bringing together people from very different disciplines. And so that affects hiring. So right now, especially in Silicon Valley, for some of you who know me, I haven't been here for the last year. I've lived in Atlanta and Nashville. And it's been really interesting to come back and look at this culture with fresh eyes, because Atlanta and Nashville don't live the same way we do here. And this place is, we work hard here. Did you guys know that? We work super hard. Americans put in longer work hours and get shorter vacation times than any other developed country in the world. And we do it the most here in New York. How many of you believe that? It's really true. Yeah. We work hard. So in addition to hiring people that come from different disciplines and different ethnicities and different ages, I think it's also important to think about the individual and encourage, this may seem, it's very countercultural, but encourage people to bring their whole selves to work rather than, right now, the way it's been for actually a while now, is when you come into work in the morning, you leave most of yourself behind. You walk through the door and most of you is gone. And you are now, whatever it is you do, the marketing professional, the biz guy, or whatever your specialty is, and you leave most of yourself behind. And there's sort of this idea that, putting in long work hours without breaks is going to bring about the best job, and it doesn't. It actually, there's a lot of research that shows that is not the case. So, research comes out of San Francisco State University that shows that people who have creative outlets outside of work are better at their jobs than people who don't. They're more effective problem solvers. They help each other more. They get better evaluations from their managers, from their customers. But they're better at their jobs than people who just work all the time. So in other words, you would be more effective at your job if you went home and did something fun. Now, let me give you an example of somebody who brought his whole self to work and is responsible for Post-it notes. Anybody in here ever use a Post-it note? Okay. Arthur Fry is not the originator of the Post-it note. Does anybody know who was? Spencer Silver worked for 3M, and his whole mission was to make a very, very strong glue. He failed. He made a very, very weak glue. They told him, sorry, we're not going to support this. And I actually met somebody from 3M after I gave a talk who told me, yeah, they really shot him down. He felt bad about it now. But at the time, they just thought he was being silly. Arthur Fry, 4 years later, I think, and I know some of you have heard this story before, but I love this story. He was singing in a choir one day, not even thinking about work, and he noticed that his hymnal notes kept falling out of his book. And he suddenly said to himself, oh my God, this is what we could use that weak glue for. This is perfect. This is a use case. So he came back and worked with Silver Spencer for 3 more years, made a case to the company that this is actually a product people will want, and voila, we have Post-it notes. If Arthur Fry had been a worker bee and just worked all the time and never done anything else, we probably would not have Post-it notes. Think about that. I know. It probably wouldn't be the worst thing that ever happened to us. We'd probably be okay, but still, it's nice to have them. All right. Another thing I would say for companies is let people take breaks. Right now, the last time I had a full-time job, I was allowed to have 2 15-minute breaks and a half an hour for lunch. And the assumption was that we would put in 10-hour days. Yeah. That was a year and a half ago. So here's the thing. I don't know how many of you have ever put in a 10-hour day before. What happens around hour, I don't know, 8? Anybody want to share? Yeah, not much. I remember I used to consult for eBay, and we were there till 8. It was understood that you'd be there till 8. And I remember, I can say this now, I'm not going to worry about it, but I remember they were burned out at 6. And we were just sort of hanging out in our cubes because in case somebody would walk by, we wanted to make sure that, we were there. But the truth is, when you start putting in those super long hours, you're getting diminishing returns, right? What normally would take maybe 10 minutes to do could take you an hour. Research from Stanford University shows that when people take breaks, they get more done, and it's higher quality work. And they're more likely to make breakthroughs. So I would suggest, and again, this is real countercultural, and companies don't want to hear this, but actually they'd get more bang for their buck if they let people take more breaks than they do right now. And who is this gentleman right here? Einstein. And I'm using him as an example. Einstein, you know who he is? Anybody know who he is? Okay, lead with Einstein. Lead with Einstein. Okay. He didn't just do physics all the time. He didn't sit around and think about physics all day long. He did not do that. He rode his bike. He played violin. He did things. He had hobbies. So the story goes that the idea for the theory of relativity popped into his mind while he was riding his bike. And I've read that in a few different places, so I think that may actually be true. Now, I'm not saying that if Einstein didn't ride his bike, we wouldn't have the theory of relativity. But I am saying that he probably thought of it quicker because he took a break. Because what's that famous saying of his? You can't solve a problem with the same kind of thinking that created it. He walked his talk.
I'm sorry. Part of it was the train ride he took every day and saw the clock. And then the clock didn't move.
Yeah.
You noticed that as you went by it.
Yeah. And there it is. Again, an outside of the, he wasn't in the lab when he had that insight, so that works too. It probably all came together. Because have any of you ever done this, ever taken a break when you take a walk or something, or you ride your bike, or you're swimming, and suddenly an idea just pops into your head out of nowhere? Has anybody ever experienced that? We get a lot of breakthroughs that way. Yeah. Yeah, question.
Einstein rode in circles at Princeton to get in the zone.
I didn't know that. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, if you guys know extra things that I don't know, I love hearing things like that. He also, the story goes, I went to Princeton, and the story goes that he got ice cream a lot. I think I went to the same ice cream shop that he went to, and one of the stories is that his ice cream cone fell out of the ice cream fell off of his cone onto the sidewalk, and he just looked at it and cried. I don't know if that's true or not, but he was an interesting dude. And one last thing for businesses. Interesting research shows that businesses that are based on personal pastimes actually tend to do better than businesses that aren't. Why do you think that might be? This guy is Terry Finley. He used Focus. He used to be a health insurance salesman, but he really loved horses and decided to put all of his effort into buying and training and selling horses, and now he's a multimillionaire. But, okay, Focus, what else? Why would a business that's based on a passion of yours or a hobby even be likely to do better than one that isn't?
More reward.
More reward from, you're right on the...
One doing the other. I mean,
so here's the, did you have more to say, or?
If they don't get the mic, just repeat it.
Okay, yeah. So, more rewards, he said. And actually, yes.
I was going to say that because you like the activity, you know what other people like. You know what's good about it.
That's a good one. I like that too, yeah. Because you enjoy the activity, you know what other people enjoy about it. Any other thoughts? There's one more. Think about this. You start a company and it's based on something you love and it's not doing very well.
Keep doing it.
You keep doing it because the rewards, you were onto it, is not just making money, The reward is the love of doing it. So what happens with a lot of these companies that are based on personal pastimes is they may start out slow to the gate. In fact, they kind of do. But they hang in there longer because they love what they're doing. And then eventually they take off. So implications for business, well, if you want to start your own business, do something you really like. But if you're going to work for somebody else, or if you're going to hire people, maybe try blurring that line between work and play a little bit, and allow people really to have passion projects like they do at Gore and Associates. A lot of companies in Silicon Valley talk about, people have, 10% of their own time to work on their side projects at work. But I've talked to those people, a lot of them, at parties and such, and have worked for some of those companies, and I have to tell you that that isn't actually the case. That 10% of the time is on the weekends. Yeah. Implications for educators. I'm going to talk about extension programs, liberal arts colleges, and schools real quickly, but I think this is interesting. How many of you have ever taken a class from an extension program? They're kind of cool, right? I have. I used to teach. There is a very interesting phenomenon happening with education on all levels right now, and that is that the arts and humanities are getting yanked out. Have you noticed that? Have you heard about that? And some of you might be going, oh, yeah, right, whatever. That doesn't, how bad could that be? That's no big deal. So I just want to show you, this is UCSC extension of Silicon Valley. I used to teach for them. I used to teach creativity workshops for 10 years, actually. They used to offer courses in writing and sculpting and photography and art. And a few years ago, they decided not to do that anymore, and they just stopped that part of the program altogether. So what are they offering now? Bioscience, business and management, engineering and technology. What does this say to you when you pick up a catalog and that's what they offer? UCSC extension of Silicon Valley. What does that say to you?
Silicon Valley.
Silicon Valley, and what is Silicon Valley? What is the culture of Silicon Valley that I see so clearly now that I haven't been here for a year? What is the culture? Anybody want to share?
Tech.
It's tech, baby. It's tech. So if you want to be successful, you learn how to be an engineer, and you spend all your time doing that. Long hours, right? Long, hard hours. This is what happens if you do that. You only got one circle. You may not be able to articulate what the synergy effect is, but you got to have two circles to get something going there. You're only going to have one circle there. And you're not going to be A, as creative or happy in and of your own self, and B, you're not going to be as effective at work. Liberal arts, they're taking it out of liberal arts now. They're shaving down the writing programs and shaving down. People are like, oh, it's not. Why do we need to learn that stuff? That's not important. Well, this is Georgetown. I had to grab a picture of Georgetown because that's where I went. And here's another Venn diagram, but it's got 3 circles. So I would kind of jazz it up a little bit. I wanted to talk about something real quickly about what my experience was as a student in a liberal arts program. I had a lot of interests. Those are 3 of them. But I'll just put psychology, biology, and philosophy up there. Because I took a lot of these courses. I also took a lot of other courses, theology, history, all kinds of things. But because there were a lot of offerings, think about it. If you're coming into the world and you've got a unique creative gift, but you don't know what it is yet, and that's true for everybody in this room, at least the part of coming into the world. Maybe some of you know what it is now, but some of you may not. A lot of people don't. Anyway, if you don't know what it is and you go to a university that gives you a lot of different offerings, it helps you figure it out, right? Because you can take a course over here, and 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 you can say to yourself, you know what? I like psychology the most. I'm going to become a psychologist. So that's one good reason not to get rid of a lot of different disciplines, arts and humanities. But there's another reason that I wanted to share with you really quickly that I think is interesting, and I'm wondering if anybody else out there ever had this experience. But the first 2 years I was a student in college, I was a memorizer. I had a great memory back then. I do not know where it went But I used to have a great memory.
You forgot where it went.
I forgot where it went. I did. I really did. But I just memorized stuff, and then I gave it back to the teachers, and I had a really great GPA. Really great GPA. Memorize, spit back, memorize, spit back, memorize, spit back. Anybody in here ever do that in school? Thank you, the 5 people who admitted that. Okay. But you know what happened around the 3rd year? Because I was taking so many different classes, you know what happened? A little tiny mini synergy effect moment for me. And that was, I was sitting in philosophy class one day, and we were talking about Kant. And all of a sudden, I thought to myself, oh my God, it's the same issue that we talk about in psychology, and it's the same issue we talk about in biology. This thing that we're talking about in a philosophy class also has been brought up in these other classes. Wait a minute, what? Has anybody had a moment like that ever? Yeah? Well, here, I'll give you just an example. In philosophy, you guys have heard of Socrates and Plato? They were asking themselves, where does knowledge come from? And they were saying, well, they thought it was inborn. And then Aristotle comes along. That's nativism. Aristotle comes along, who's a student of Plato's, and he says, no, I'm going to rebel.